Make sure that recording, let
Yep.
it spin up. There we go. Recording has started. I'm dropping my
Excellent.
video now.
Thank you.
And when you give me the cue, I will admit all.
So when it hits 7:01, admit all, please.
Okay.
How many are there right now? Curiosity.
95.
We have 90, yeah, 95
Okay,
people.
96 now. So is this now the largest webinar so far?
No, we have to break 165.
Okay.
Okay, admitting all.
Go for
All
it.
right. All right. Hello, all. We'll get started as soon as everyone is admitted. Just give us 1 or 2 more minutes. All right, we're almost there. Just bear with us here while we invite everyone, while we admit everyone. All right. Hello from Lethbridge. Yes, this is live. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Zone L information sharing session. Please note this is an unofficial information sharing session. And by the way, this is being recorded and transcribed as we speak. A few housekeeping items. You will see on top of the screen a chat button. That's the way you can actually ask us questions. And by the way, on your screen right now, you should be able to see a spreadsheet. And so there was over 450 questions that were asked. What Adam did, by the way, on the call, we have Adam Maas, we have Leslie Farkas, and myself. I'm Joe Trinidad. And on the screen, what you'll see is a spreadsheet. There's over 450 questions in there. It would not be good use of your time to go through every single question. So what Adam did was took a day off work to actually assemble these questions in a format that's a lot easier to go through. Because a lot of these questions, believe it or not, are repetitive. So don't be shy. Feel free to click that chat button if you have a question. But here's a format that's a lot easier to see. So welcome. And here we go. So Leslie Farkas, Zone Director, wave. I hope you can all see him.
Oh, yes, indeed.
There you go. And Adam Maas, he's there. He's invisible, but take your camera off. Put your camera on for a sec. And there's Adam with the falling bridge behind him, and myself. All right. So why don't we get going? Here we go. So first question: how do we get the spreadsheet? Well, we will be sharing the presentation with you. The spreadsheet we cannot give you because it has personal information from the people that submitted the questions. Okay, so the summaries are what you're going to get. This recording you're going to get in one form or another, either through transcript or video or both, and we'll do our best to distribute it out to everybody. So here we go. Why don't we get going? First question: what happened and why was all of MAAC affected? Leslie?
Well, basically, one or more sites were sanctioned in control airspace after June 1st, 2019, in contravention of condition 3 of the exemption. Now we have to understand that condition 1 to 5 of the exemption were organizational level, and any of the violation of those 5 points would result that the organization itself would be losing the exemption, not just a member who or club who violated the conditions.
So what? That's
Yes.
Thank you, Leslie. Why don't we get questions from the field? We'll leave it open for 30 seconds before we move on to the next question. By the way, remember, this is a culmination of all those questions. And I see someone that's raised their hand. I can't see who you are, but please feel free to use the chat to ask your question. And I believe it's Ron. Go ahead,
Ron Pro.
please.
Mm-hmm.
Going once, going twice. All right, moving right along. Question 2. Who's at fault?
Then a setting zone director violated the conditions of exemptions. This violation was not related to Zone L. No current or past Zone L zone director violated the exemption. So I think this is important for us to know that Zone L is not in any way involved in this situation. There are disciplinary actions are taking place. Further investigation is happening, but because of the confidentiality, does not allow the individuals and locations to be publicly published. So we have to respect the individuals, and we have to respect all the organizations' laws which we follow.
So a question was raised in the chat. Did we consult a lawyer to see if we could save the exemption?
My answer to that one, that the management is looking at options, what to do, how to do. I cannot disclose any information on that, as we have no firm. I cannot give you a firm answer to that. But we're looking for avenues. How are we going to be able to get back to some sort of normalcy?
Okay, so a bit of housekeeping as well. Not every question can be answered by Adam and or Leslie. There's a few questions that were in the spreadsheet that has been escalated to different areas within the organization, and we will have a second webinar planned to answer those questions. So we'll disseminate that information as soon as we get it. Okay, is MAAC working on a revised exemption as we speak?
Well, there is a development right now. The entire leadership, MAAC leadership, is looking at avenues, how we can get back to normalcy, how we can sanction the locations with the current requirements, updating the safety code, and to address the concerns of Transport Canada and NAFCAN. I think we have to know that before flying, an SOC at the sanction side is now a safety code requirement. So the fields which were previously sanctioned cannot be used until they receive the SOC. Just to give you some information, until February the 28th, there were 5 zones which have not received one field release. And as of this morning, I received 2 green light for Zone L fields. So things are in motion, and hopefully that will just increase, and we're going to get all our fields, which are in G class airspace, back in action.
Excellent. Moving on to question 3. What is MAAC doing to number 1? I don't know what that means, Adam, but.
Well, it's needless to say that the situation is fluid, as the Transport Canada Committee is constantly in contact with Transport Canada. and trying to work toward to get some sort of find a way how we can get back to our normal situation, and how can we be granted the permission from them to start our operation, but that will be a few months away.
Okay. So note that having SOC before flying at sanctioned site is now a safety code requirement. You mentioned that. MAAC has implemented additional controls to ensure zone director actions with regulatory impact are reviewed and communicated in training have been regularly provided to the board since prior to the receipt of the extension. Excuse me. So a couple more questions came up here. Even if MAAC figures out the issues, okay, that's a hard one to answer. So even if MAAC figures out the issues, we will still need the RPAS certification. How does this affect the outcome? So maybe let's transpose that a little bit. Is MAAC actually negotiating a new exemption? And is RPAS going to still be required? I understand if you can't answer, it'll be part of the webinar number 2.
Okay. Well, the RPAS regulations are in effect. How are we going to be able to negotiate a new agreement that is remain to be seen? Obviously, this is the RPAS regulations are fairly restrictive. I've been hearing it from zone members and clubs, but obviously the entire group, management group, the board is working toward to somehow make it more easier for our members to continue with their hobby.
Okay, follow-up question here. Why have only 2 clubs in Zone L sanctioned opened? Wing, the second large, I guess, let me change this. Why have only 2 clubs in Zone L sanctioned, is Zone L open with the second largest group? We're the second largest organization. Why are only 2 clubs open?
Well, until this morning, we had not one club opened. I have to tell you that the SAC committee is going through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we do not make any mistake regarding GPS location. We have to collect. I have to collect all the safety regulations from each clubs, and we have say at 200 clubs across the country who are in G-class airspace. And to go through that, it takes time. Furthermore, the SAC committee looked at the geographic locations of the clubs, and they felt that the West Coast was more or less all year using the fields. So they reached out to them, and now we are coming toward to the east, and that includes Zone L and the Quebec region, which is the winter is harsher. But I'm afraid that they did not recognize that, as I'm understanding, that we here in the Zone L, we have plenty of activities during the winter. But that is the answer. It's an extremely large load for 3 people to deal with this situation.
Okay, so follow-up question to that. Is not sanctioning of a field the respective role, sole responsibility of the zone director alone? Or is it not a committee of some sort involved? I believe you just answered that. It's a committee that's involved in doing the SOCs.
That's correct.
But maybe I read that wrong. Sanctioning of the field. That's right. I did read it wrong. I'm sorry, Leslie. Is
Okay.
sanctioning of the field sole responsibility of the zone director, or is there a team that's responsible for sanctioning a field?
I can answer you that when I became the zone director, there was a new club which was established. They submitted their information, and I forwarded to the safety advisory group, who give me the okay, and they were allowed to establish, and they sanctioned the field. So the zone director is no longer sanctioning fields, but the safety advisory group does that.
Okay, so now it's a safety advisory group that sanctions fields. All right.
Yes.
So that's answered. Um, okay, follow-on question. I know there's a lot of questions here. We will get through this. Um, with the club members at the SOC approved fields, do they still need to obtain licensing with TC? I don't
Also,
understand the question. Do you understand?
yes, yes. Transport Canada regulations. And although the field had been opened up for operation, we still have to be in compliance, which was given to us by Transport Canada. So yes, everybody has to obtain their pilot certificate, and everybody has to register their aircraft. And in addition to, they have to follow the MAAC safety regulations.
Okay. So who is now regulating our flying field? Is it TC or MAC?
Well, MAC is still regulating the field because they are sanctioned, is under MAC regulations. Transport Canada doesn't get involved other than, as I mentioned before, they have to follow the regulations as required, Transport Canada regulations.
So another question here from David. What happens if you fly at a field with Class G airspace, but there's no SOC?
Hello, hello. Hello.
I'm
For
there.
some reason
Okay.
I dropped off. Can you hear me again?
I hear you now, yes.
You are back, Joe.
Thank you. I dropped off. I'm sorry. All right. Going back to the questions, were you able to answer that last one?
Not just, could you repeat that, please?
Okay, what happens if you fly at a field within Class G airspace, but there's no SOC for that field?
First of all, you're not allowed to fly on a field on a saying on. Well, if, let me just rethink this. If it was not issued an SOC, that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You cannot fly on a field because that's a MAAC sanctioned field, and you cannot fly there. You can fly everywhere else based on the Transport Canada regulations, and your insurance covered, but you cannot fly on a field which has not received the SOC.
Okay. Okay. Let me just move down. Why are personal flying sites covered by insurance and regular club sites without an SOC not covered if CAR Part 9 conditions are met?
Again, I have to go back to the fact that we are an organization and we are MAAC members and we are to follow the MAAC regulations. On a
Okay.
private field or anywhere you can fly, again, you have to remember that you still have to obtain the clearance for the airspace. You still have to maintain the MAAC safety regulations. A private field is a private field. We have no control over it because we are governed by Transport Canada regulations.
All right. The next one I don't think we can answer because that's more of Mike Anderson question. Uh, so if TC is the regulator, what are MAC obligations at this time? So Adam, if you can take a note of that, we'll answer that on the second webinar. Another one here, if there are questions from SAC committee regarding the SOC, how fast is the turnaround on these questions getting back to the clubs?
Well, based on the workload, what they have, certainly if I have any question, I pass it on, and the moment they respond to me, I pass it on to the clubs. I cannot give you any specific timetable how fast that can be done.
Okay, this one's a good one too. Please explain what a personal flying site is.
There are their personal properties, which is
Okay.
a personal site for clubs or individuals. That is what we call personal site.
All right, so why don't we pause here the questions because we can continue all night on the chat, and let's answer a lot of questions here from the presentation that was put together. So here's question 4. what's MAAC doing?
Joe, you need to reshare.
Oh, I do? Oh, yeah, that's right. I did drop off, didn't I? Okay, share screen. Okay, thank you. Let me know when it's alive.
It's alive.
Yes.
All right. So you see the question on the screen?
Yep. So the answer is to the question is what MAAC is doing that currently in active negotiations with Transport Canada to gain new exemption. It is currently thought that this will likely be granted as an assumption, although it is some months off at the earliest anyway. So dealing with governmental agencies, as everybody can understand, is sometimes takes longer time, and that's what we are facing. But definitely negotiations are ongoing.
All right, moving right along. Why does this apply to fixed wing?
Well, it's an interesting thing because unfortunately what happened is that I think that the drone manufacturing exploded, and I think the regulatory bodies, they didn't realize that it will create a problem. I do understand that many of the members were complaining that the test, what they have to do to obtain the pilot certificate, is not applicable to fixed wing aircrafts. Having said that, again, this is a matter of how we presenting ourselves to the government agencies. I think we have to definitely ride on the fact that for 74 years, we've been in operation. Well, drones were just a recent development in the airspace. And we have to emphasize that we had no incidents. They felt that they brought us under because we lost our exemption. It was easier for them to bring us under the same umbrella like the drones are.
Thank you. Question 6, Part 9 requirements do not align with club operations.
Let me just get to it and.
Sure, looks like you're frozen.
Yeah, no, I'm frozen.
Okay, you're good. Okay, you're alive again.
I get all these questions and I freeze immediately.
Yeah.
Part 9 of the cards, especially with regards to RPAS basic operations, are focused on the individual pilot operating at one or more private location, regardless of the type of RPA operated. They do not align well with club operations, a matter that does also affect the FPV race community, not just MAAC. The exemption was issued in part because this gap is recognized by Transport Canada. A new exemption is likely for the same reason.
Okay. Question 7, will there be a site or type specific exemptions issued to the Part 9 requirements?
No, there will be not a site or regulation specific exemption to Part 9 regulations. Until a new exemption is received by MAAC, members will have to comply with all Part 9 regulations, as I mentioned it before, including those that do not align well with the operations, for example, RPA registration, altitude registration, controlled airspace, and specific sites.
Okay. Question 8, can I fly? That's a pretty direct question.
Well, the answer is that all members, they can fly based on Transport Canada Part 9 regulations, except on a club fields which have not been authorized to operate.
So at a private location, yes. At a club, no.
That is correct. Until the club receives the green light for the operation from the SAC committee.
Yeah, there's a hidden question in here also around the sub 250. you know, where can people fly the sub 250-gram aircraft?
It's a big discussion. I cannot give you a clear answer at the moment. I have to get a little more on this because under Transport Canada regulations, sub 250 are not regulated, but the MAAC regulation stipulates from 0 to 25 kilo. So I think I will have to get back on that subject.
All right, thank you. Question 9. When will my club receive its SOC? That's a pretty loaded question.
Yes. Again, as I mentioned, that every club, every field is being analyzed and verified by the safety advisory group. I cannot give any specific time. If I look at it, that we've been waiting for this for 3 months to open up 2 fields. It's very time consuming. Having said that, everybody can be sure that all these people who are working very hard to make sure that every club ultimately will get the green light and we can get back. I have no timetable for that. I cannot specify it. It's out of my control. So we are depending on the safety advisory group.
So there was a question earlier, which 2 clubs in Zone L are opened? And I believe you answered it here. Oakville
And
Model
Mississauga.
Flying Club and Mississauga Model
That's
Flying
correct.
Club are now open.
Yes. As of this morning.
Excellent. Site surveys. Can you elaborate, please, on the site surveys and what the requirements are?
Okay, this is a very, very difficult question to answer, and at the same time is simple. The difficulty is the matter of how do we understand, or how can we understand that the site survey, it has to be done every time when somebody goes out and flying, every time. Some people are not very happy about. This goes to, or this belongs to running a log on your operation on your flight. Not a big problem until something happens and somebody comes and asks for your log. And if you do not have the site survey done, I think that would result in a fine. This is my understanding at the moment.
But Adam, do you mind stepping in on that one for a moment? I believe you have additional information.
Yes. Hold on a second. I'll just turn on my video. Yes. The key piece is the site survey needs to be done. The pilot is responsible for determining that a site survey has been done and what the conditions are that must be operated under. That means in a club situation, a site at the beginning of the day, a site survey needs to be done. And as additional pilots come to the field, they don't have to do multiple site surveys for one site for one flying period. Only one is required so long as that site, as the pilot determines that site survey has been completed and reviews it. So if you get there and you're the second guy there and the first person's done the site survey, ask them to review theirs. And at that point, if their site survey is accurate for the site, you've determined that a site survey has been done and the conditions that must be operated under. This also supports if you're not in a position to do a site survey yourself, get one of your club mates to do so and then review it.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Adam. Moving on to question 11, insurance. Am I covered under MAAC?
The MAAC insurance is in full effect wherever you're flying. There's no change in that. Other than, as I mentioned to you, that if anybody's flying in a non-authorized club field, the MAAC insurance does not cover that particular location until it's being released for operation. So in anywhere, any private field or anywhere you fly, the MAAC insurance does cover you.
So can Zone L get its own insurance? It's another question.
I don't think is needed because MAAC is covering you. So I don't see why somebody would want to have their own insurance if they are a MAAC member. That's exactly an advantage of being a MAAC member. that you are being provided with, I think, $7 million coverage.
Right. Can my club get its own insurance in addition to MAAC?
It's a free country. If somebody wants to have more insurance than $7 million, they can do that. But that's a unnecessarily spent money, the way I see it.
Okay. Can I get my own insurance? It seems
Same answer. Same
Yes.
answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move along here. Question 12. Students and juniors, please.
Yeah, according to the regulations, again, the RPAS basic under the supervision, like may fly without an RPAS basic under supervision of an RPAS certificate holder. We recommend students to the RPAS basic test as it is a knowledge test, not a skill test. Junior 14 to 17 may do the RPAS basic test and fly like any other member. Juniors under 14 may fly sub 250 grams, but can only fly that weight of aircraft under the supervision of an RPAS certificate holder. So you need somebody who is already fully qualified. It's almost like a body box type of thing.
So, supervision is a very ambiguous word, and I don't, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. There's a lot of people with children that
Yes.
want to share the passion of this hobby with them. Does that mean that they have to fly with a buddy box all the time? Or once they're cleared by the chief instructor and able to fly, the supervisor could be anyone in that organization, um, making sure that the actions are safe?
That is correct. Anybody who's a certified pilot can assist a junior, because that's what they are doing. They're supervising.
Okay.
Without a body box, if the young person is able to fly without a body box, he obviously has some knowledge, but the supervisor just going to be there to provide whatever support the young man needs.
Or lady.
Or lady. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I forgot.
No problem. By the way, memories of Chip Hyde comes to me because Chip Hyde started at 6 years old. Just saying. Okay, question 13. Historical exemption matters. Why
Okay.
did
Okay. The log entries must be done for each aircraft and may include a series of flights. The time range and number of flights is sufficient from that perspective.
Leslie, I think you're on the wrong slide. We're on question
we're on
13.
15.
question 13.
Oh, 13. Oh, 13. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was at 15. Okay. Why did operations in control airspace continue after the exemption was issued? Question. They were permitted under the exemption. The restriction was on new site sanctions in controlled airspace, and those were permitted by required written agreement from the controlling agency. That was the most important part of it. Obtain a written agreement. Why SOCs issued with 700 limit? 7 SOCs issued prior to the termination of the exemption, communicated on February 25th, 2023. And they were issued under the requirements of the MAAC safety code. MPPD 15 sets an altitude limit of 700 feet. I think we were fortunate that we were able to get that 700 feet across the country, across the nation, from Halifax all the way up to Vancouver. And it's helped many of the disciplines who required higher altitude. Regardless of the condition of the SOC, MAAC members are required to abide by Part 9 limits, including 400 limit until the new exemption is granted. Why were the fields in Class G airspace closed? The reason for the closure was communicated to all the members in the notification sent on December 2022. We are all clubs desanctioned? No. MAAC ordered outdoor flying operations to cease. The sanction remains, but the SOC is now required before the operation of the sanctioned field can restart.
Okay, so Leslie, I'm going to re-ask question number 3, which is why were all fields in Class G airspace closed? Because I understand the reasoning behind this, and I'm sure
Yes.
the people out there want to know, because in
Yeah.
Class G airspace, those are the first ones that's going to get their SOCs, because
Right.
there is no issue if you comply with, the
Okay.
RPAS regulations. So why was everything closed, not just the fields that were in controlled airspace?
Well, the issue was that at the time, the board was recommended this decision to demonstrate to the controlling agencies that we are able to manage our affairs. Needless to say, that didn't take long for many of the new board of directors and including myself to recognize that if there were no issue, why did we do that? But the decision was made and we stuck with it. And right now we're trying to rectify that and correct it by opening up these fields as fast as possible.
Okay. Switching slides. Club responsibilities. Question 14.
Yes. Clubs do not have any responsibility under Part 9. Clubs continue to have the same set of responsibilities under the MAAC safety code, which we mentioned several times before. It is recommended that the clubs confirm that the pilot has an RPAS basic certificate before granting rights to operate an RPAS over 250 grams. This is for the insurance reasons. The pilot is entirely responsible for Part 9 compliance. So, every pilot who's out there, they are on their own. MAAC is not, the club is not responsible. They are responsible to be in full compliance.
All right. Slide 15, logging.
As I mentioned before, the log entries must be done for each aircraft and may include a series of flights. Started before. The time range and number of flights is sufficient from that perspective. A log must be maintained for each registered aircraft. So now we know that each craft has to be registered individually. The flight logs must be retained for 12 months. Maintenance log for 24 months. Logs must be provided to TC on request. So if any investigator comes by and they're asking for your log, you must provide that. No requirement exists for log submission under directly requested. Maintenance logs must be provided to the new owner when registered RPAS is sold. MAAC is working on a log form, a printed form, which will be provided to all members once completed. This likely be also published in the MAAC magazine. So I think that will be a great help for people who might not have the technical knowledge or ability. You have a printed format.
Okay. So we'll move on to question 16, registration.
All aircrafts over 250 grams must be registered in accordance to Part 9. The registration ID must be affixed to the outside of the aircraft. MAAC safety code requirements for aircraft identification must also be met. You may put the TC registration code on the same tag as your MAAC identification. Sub 250 aircrafts are not exempt from the safety code requirements, despite being exempt from Part 9 requirement. Again, like this is, I believe it's the difference between our own regulations and the Part 9. At this time, we recommend registering aircraft only when ready to fly them to speed the cost of registering multiple aircraft.
All right. By the way, we are going to get back to the questions in the chat. We just want to get through the answers here first. Okay, so going to question 17, prioritization.
As I mentioned before, the prioritization did take place based on the safety advisory group. I will be bringing this issue to the attention of the BOD and request the TC advisory groups to support by asking the issue to be raised with Transport Canada. This is basically, I guess, I would say that any competitive team who has to prepare themselves, I think we have to be able to get the support. I've been saying it and advocating for quite a long time that I think we took the wrong approach. We've been promoting ourselves and presenting ourselves as an association of hobbyists. The reality is that we do have disciplines where our members are competing at world championships. These are the people who are bringing back the glory to our country. And I think that this would be and should be recognized by government or even controlling agencies. And that should be the base for our asking for certain location to be given special permit so these people that can prepare themselves for the World Championships.
Okay. Question 18, RPAS Wilco.
This is a very good question. I think that RPAS Wilco was basically developed for us with a lot of benefits to the users. And it allows them to be a good tool, which will make the MAAC requirements into account as well. How much this RPAS Wilco cost to develop? No cost to the best of my knowledge. It was developed by AIM Robotics at their cost. Further developments may be funded by MAAC to provide MAAC specific feature. So obviously, if you want to make any changes to an existing program to tailor make it for our organization, we will have to pay some money for it. I cannot give you the exact information or cost. What did it cost to MAAC to pay RPAS Wilco? We'll have to look at it, and I'm sure that I'll be able to give you some fixed numbers.
Last question, what's the relationship between MAAC and AIM Robotics?
I got to step in. I just want to step in here for one moment and just apologize for the incomplete slide. I saved it, I edited it. I did not save the last edit, but I'll let Leslie answer this.
Okay, what is you're talking about, asking about the relationship between MAAC and AIM Robotics?
Yes.
Yes.
MAAC reached out to AIM Robotics with a concern after the 2019 to be able to assist our members to make sure that they're going to be flying in a right airspace, and that is the only relationship. In other words, we reached out to them for their program and using their program. Okay. That is all I can tell you.
Question 19, events. Can events still be held?
The events, I believe that they will have to submit a special request for events, and based on the size of the event, that will be considered and granted, or we'll see what it happens. Okay. Yes, as long as they can be held within the restriction, again, restriction of Part 9 operations. So the competition still be held, yes, as long they within the restrictions of Part 9 operations.
Okay. 20, more SOC questions. What has the SAG been tasked with? Safety Advisory Group.
So basically, all the club presidents, they know, who submitted their information, that what they had to provide is confirming their location. They have to provide the club rules. They have to provide a drone measurement of their flying area. So if the site pass review the site operation certificate, then it's issued. Everything is confirmed all the location, all the safety regulations, safety rules, club rules, then they're going to be issued the certificate. The question is
why
is
Transport Canada advisory group not assisting?
Yes. Well, I think it's these two different subjects, I believe. I would like to see personally a larger number of members in each of the groups. As I'm traveling through and meeting many club members, I discovered that there are a lot of highly qualified ex-Transport Canada, ex-NAVCAM employees who could be very, very helpful for an organization. And I certainly aiming for having these people involved so our operation going to be more fluid, more efficient.
Okay. Last question in this slide. Will MAAC be providing clubs with standard checklists for Part 9 compliance?
Well, this is a problem which I sort of find difficult to understand. This is where we also talking about clear communication, transparency. Make sure that if we have expectation of the clubs, that we communicate what is required. And up till this point, is unfortunately is not well done. Everybody is left up that you check your own obligations, but I think that those obligations has to be clearly told all the members and all the clubs, and I think we're not going to face any problem that way.
So, by the way, there's only 23 groups of questions here. We'll be going to the chat immediately after. So, pretty loaded question here. Why is MAAC not being transparent? I don't know if you can answer that one.
I'm afraid I cannot tell you not transparent. I'm trying to figure out that how could we improve on that, because we cannot have expectation unless we are communicating on a regular basis. At this point, I would like to apologize. Some people were concerned that I, as the zone director, why I did not reach out to the membership of our zone. And a simple reason for it is that I felt that the communication would have to come from MAAC itself. I certainly feel a little bit of responsibility, and at this point, I'd like to thank Joe Trinidad, who initiated that. Probably we should hold this discussion, and I think it was a great suggestion, and I fully agree with it that we have to be more transparent. What is the transparency for you, me, or somebody else is always questionable. How much information do we expect? But when it comes to the basic operational requirements, that has to be clearly stated, and that, like I said, that will eliminate any of the problems.
Okay. No thanks needed. This was required for everyone. I was going crazy just like everyone else. All right. Question 22, Transport Canada. Why are we even on Transport Canada's radar?
Well, the simple answer to that, after it was revealed that there were some issues, that's why we got on their radar, because they were looking into our operation more in detail. Transport Canada granted the exemption because they felt that we can self-manage ourselves. My son, he has a parachuting company, and the parachuters, they do the very same thing. They follow the regulations, cross all the T's and dot the I's, and that's what we have to demonstrate to Transport Canada, that we can manage our organization, we can deal with our members, that we can be in full compliance to Transport Canada requirements.
And second part here, why can't we get Transport Canada to use the same working rules as the FAA for recreational activities?
Well, the answer to that is again is our communication. We had an issue where, as everybody knows, we had a reciprocal agreement for many, many, many years from day one with the Americans. Again, this information has to be provided to Transport Canada or any of the controlling agencies. It's still part of the negotiations. It's ongoing, and I cannot comment on that any further.
Okay. But I think here, AMA and FAA, I mean, Transport Canada and
Right.
FAA are two
Yes.
totally separate organizations, and they all have their own rules and regulations to work by. By the way, most of us have friends that fly in the US. They do have that 400-foot limit as well. They don't listen, they don't do it. But that's a different story. That's more rumors. So just check with your friends in the US because they live it every day and compare it to what we've got. Does MAAC safety record have an impact on this situation?
It certainly have to, and as I mentioning it before, we have to harp on that and repeat ourselves that we have 74 years of existence and operation in Canadian airspace without any collision with full-size aircraft, and that should mean something.
Absolutely. And just food for thought, I want to feed people with here. Last year, when COVID first started, a friend and I visited Drone Delivery Canada. You can look them up on the web. They're there. Drone Delivery Canada. They were lobbying Transport Canada for open airspace to be able to do last mile delivery anywhere, anytime, any place. So if you take a look at the actions happening by FAA and Transport Canada, the reality is, you can speculate that Transport Canada is actually carving out airspace to get ready for this type of service. Amazon alone has spent over $26 million in lobbyists in the US for that last mile airspace. So I think the drone piece is being used as a scapegoat, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, yes.
Last slide here before we get back to all the
Chat.
chat questions. Go ahead. Are there options to write RPAS Basic other than online?
Now, this is a major problem for many of our members. Many of the members who've been in our hobby for 50, 60 years, they are into their 80s. Again, not technical savvy. And one thing which came up, and it came up in Huronia, where they decided that they're going to rent a room in a public library where all these gentlemen can get together and they will assist them to obtain their certificate. Study guide, I guess that unfortunately the way it works that probably I should mention this, that we should do something again. This is a matter of communication. I understand that there are some excellent guides are available free, notable the Don Drone on YouTube channel. You've all seen Don making his comments, and on a regular basis, he's reaching out to his membership. This is something I think that we will have to consider, that we should be able to use a similar platform to communicate to our members. Is MAAC able to provide communication for members without computer? That's what I was saying, that they will not be able to do that. They will have to. MAAC is relying on the camaraderie of each of the club, helping each other, and I think that's an important part of it, that we have to help these members who are unable to do it on their own, because at that stage in their age is not likely they're going to become computer savvy.
Thank you. All right, so why don't we go to the chat now? Steve posted, how will MAAC improve governance over sanctioned fields to ensure fields will be in compliance in the future?
Well, again, it's up to the clubs to make sure that they enforce all the regulations which is expected of them to do. Nobody, none of the zone director or nobody can go and start visiting the clubs every time they're flying out there. So we have to rely on their own responsibility that they look after what they're supposed to do.
So another question here, who are the members of the safety advisory group? Are they duly elected? What special qualifications do they hold? I believe Randy Hepner is on this call as well.
Yes.
He can't answer, but he's on the call.
Well, Randy Hepner is the one really with a full qualification because of his professional background. He gets some support, but as I mentioned to you, I think it would be good just to help Randy and the entire group to have maybe a larger number supporting them, support staff to be there.
So who are the members of the safety advisory group? Randy's one of them. Who's the other one? I
Randy,
believe you have listed on MAAC.
Yes. Dave Cummings, who is the chair.
Yeah.
Randy Hepner, who is, as I said, is really the fully qualified person. And Paul Bryan, who is also a great person, hardworking person. They are the three anyway. These were appointed. These were appointed positions or appointed individuals from the previous administration.
Okay. Since MAAC is regulating, do we not need to report crashes to TC?
The report, I think that there's a in the part 9, there's a requirement at MAAC regulation. They stipulate that all incident has to be reported.
Is there a clear definition of incident?
Incident can be personal, can be a, yeah, it can be a personal, can be a property damage, anything which involves with a crash of an aircraft is to be reported.
Okay.
Is that clear or?
It's cloudy, because you know, and I know, and everyone here knows that model airplanes, all of them have expiry dates, and it's only a matter of time. What
Yes.
responsibility is it of the pilot to report it? Is it enough just to keep it in the log? Because remember, you retire your certification number if that plane is no longer available.
Yes, operational. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Good.
Well, again, incident. Well, this is a little bit of a problem because I think that all these regulations are aimed at full-size aircraft.
Yes.
And therefore, you know, not to recognize that we're talking about aircraft models, as Joe is saying, they have a lifespan, and ultimately they move on their own. Again, this is a matter of presenting it to the authorities, to the controlling agencies, to make a differentiation between a full-size aircraft and model aircraft.
Right. So let's hope it's included in the new exemption. All right. Why isn't the focus on having Transport Canada understand the difference between drones and model airplanes? That's more of an assumption, but we can turn that into a question. Is there a differentiation happening between MAAC and Transport Canada to separate drones from fixed-wing aircraft? Or
I cannot comment on firmly because I'm not involved in the negotiations, but I'm sure that our representatives are fully aware of the difference, and I assume that they certainly will mention and try to get some clarity on that in the minds of Transport Canada.
so this next question was already answered in your presentation. The question is, so can I fly in Class G airspace, not at a MAAC sanctioned field? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Correct?
Provided. Yes.
Provided you follow all Part 9 regulations. Okay. Exemption for what now? TC certifications required for private field or sanctioned field. That's not quite the question, but David, if you can retype it as a question, and we'll get to it in the chat. Okay. Has anyone obtained a basic RPAS license, and can you tell us how easy or difficult it is to obtain one? I'll raise my hand there because I did mine 2 years ago, and it took 20 minutes. It's mostly common knowledge. I messed up on clouds, okay, or meteorology, but it was still 85, and pass is 65.
Yeah, I got a little comment there because I did mine the night of February 25th when we got the news, and I would agree with Joe on that. It is largely common knowledge and it is an open book test, so you can leave a study guide open while you do the test. It took me about 15-16 minutes, and I also had problems with meteorology because I got a question. I got a question about a meteorological formation that you can't fly into while remaining RPAS basic compliant.
Yeah, cumulus. Anyways, yeah. All right. So again, Ethan's very active here. Obtaining a license requires 3 or 4 hours of studying. Most of it is irrelevant to drones, and even more irrelevant to model airplanes. Okay, that was a comment. Okay, there's a bunch of people chatting amongst themselves here. I'm just trying to get through to the actual questions. Moving right now. Would it be legal for us to stop RPAS pilots flying at fields as fields are not owned by MAAC? And the city that owns the field usually requires clubs to follow national and provincial legislation. Did you understand the question, or should I reread it?
Could you reread it again?
Would it be legal for us to stop RPAS pilots flying at fields as fields are not owned by MAAC, and the city that owns the field usually requires clubs to follow national and provincial legislation? I think we should park that. That's a hard one. I don't know the question. It's hard to decipher a question from that. Okay, moving along. Our club field does not have an SOC yet. If we move to a field just 100 meters away and declare it a private site, will we have coverage? That's a good one.
Well, if you're not on the actual site, club site, and you move away 100 feet, I mean, I think that would require more than 100 feet for a simple reason, because you're flying, so you're going to be flying over your club site. So 100 feet wouldn't do it. If you go, a kilometer over and you do your proper study of airspace, you can do anything you want.
Okay, so that answers that. Now, remember, folks, we will have a version 2 of this webinar. Unfortunately, we can't go through all of the chat questions, but please feel free to join the second webinar. We'll post it as soon as we get answers to some of the questions we've moved forward to the MAAC executive. I hope you found it informative. Thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you very much, Adam, for hosting this on the platform. To everyone out there, please stay tuned on RC Canada, on many forums, and on many Facebook sites, and we'll get the information out to you. So these transcripts will go out, and if we can get the recording downloaded, these will go out as well. Thank you very much, all. Have a great evening.
Thank you for your participation and your interest, and definitely for dedication to our association. Good night, everyone.
Good night.